All right, you guys. Happy Sunday. USMNT top 10 continues despite judgmental deity says in Pochettino's eyes, Matko Miljevic is the entire top 10. Oh, yes, the Miljevic jokes will be fun over the next few. Let's see if he calls him up in March. That'll be the true disgrace. I mean, it was already quite weird that he called him up for this camp, but if he calls him up in March, that'll be clear nepotism, following in the footsteps of his predecessor, Greg Berhalter. What's up, Mav12? How's everybody's Sunday going? We had a really good week. Now, a lot of the performances this week were not on the weekend games. They were on the midweek games. So I think it's not as fresh in people's memory, but it is still obviously counting towards this week's top 10. Among USMNT, yo, Pete, hey, I saw you. Thank you for joining Patreon, man. I just haven't had a chance to get to your email yet. It hasn't been the easiest of weeks. Hello, Sese. How are you guys? Javier, Pete, condolences to you and LA and Taco. I hope you have a better rest of the year. Thank you, Javier. We evacuated our home, and then we had to put our dog down. It was just a lot happened so far this year. But, we keep going, right? Because there's not much else you can do. And you have to stay strong, and you have to, not let these things destroy you, because they can. Yeah, it just is what it is. Glad you are back, Pete. Thank you, Matthew. Appreciate it, man. It's we keep moving. We move. How about you guys? How's your early 2025 been treating you? Anything else? Anything positive, at least, that's going on in anyone's life? Anyone graduate? Anyone get married? Anyone get a new job? Buy a house? Anything positive going on? Tony Martinez says cold. Where are you, Tony? Thoughts on John Tolkin to host and kill? Let's start there. That's a great one, Javier. So, thoughts on John Tolkin to host and kill. Javier got a job. That's awesome. Say got a baby girl. Turned one last week. Congratulations, man. Congratulations. I'm happy for you. So, thoughts on John Tolkin to host and kill. Yes, good for him. Look, it's not an easy environment for him to be in, right? He's going to a club that looks like they're going to be relegated, especially after their latest choke job. I think they lost the game on the weekend 3-0. But there's still plenty of the season left to play for. And sometimes all you need is 4 or 5 wins, and that pulls you clear of the relegation zone. So for Tolkin, who has spent 5 years now in MLS, he's never really been pushed, right? He was the de facto left back at Red Bulls for many years. Whether he had a good performance or a 90% performance or a bad performance, he knew he was going to start week in and week out. There's not really any stakes. No promotion relegation. Most of the teams make the playoffs. So what he's going to experience in terms of a relegation battle is very, very good for him, where every move you make matters. Every moment matters. Every game matters. Every time he steps onto that pitch, it is going to be life or death to try to survive in the Bundesliga. And if they don't, then he'll be playing in the 2 Bundesliga next year. I have said in the past that I don't rate Tolkin as high as some people do, but this is the right move for him. If he wants to compete to be a backup to A-Rob, whether he's competing with Wiley or whether he's competing with Lund or whether he's competing with Paredes, or hopefully, if Pochettino can put his recruiting gloves on, Nathaniel Brown, although let's be honest, if Nathaniel Brown gets recruited, there's very little competition. It's going to be A-Rob and Brown, and everybody else is just fighting for third. But to even have a chance to be a part of it, he had to go push himself. So it was the right time, and was it the right move? I mean, it's hard to say because we don't really know what other offers he had available. And frankly, I don't think elite teams were looking at John Tolkin, and that's okay. If he can, somebody said on Twitter, they're worried that this could go the path of George Bello, right? And I said to them, well, if John Tolkin goes the path of George Bello, then he was never that good to begin with, and there's no real loss, right? This is a sink or swim opportunity for him. And so hopefully he swims, because we need as much depth as we absolutely can. Let's see. Seste says, worst case, he comes back to MLS and gets a fat check. I mean, I think he would get a fat check either way, to be honest. Javier says, my hot take, Brian Gutierrez regresses under Berhalter, but Berhalter's lack of offensive game plans will make Chris Brady look like Buffon. Yeah, Chicago's going to be a very interesting team to watch this year with Greg Berhalter at the helm. Prepare for a lot of verticality, a lot of crossing, and a lot of endless possession. You never know. He might do well there, though. MLS is, for better or for worse, his level, right? That's his level. And he might. Here's the thing about Chicago. It cannot get worse. This team has been so bad for 10 years. It's actually a smart job for him to take, because if he doesn't improve them, you have the excuse of, oh, that's just Chicago. They've been bad for years. Although I personally will blame him if he doesn't improve them, because if you're a good coach, you can improve a team. Okay. But it's an easy excuse. And if nobody likes to make excuses more than Greg Berhalter. If you've heard his latest excuses, some really hilarious ones. But he could easily say, well, or the narrative could easily be changed to, oh, it's Chicago. It's not really Greg Berhalter's fault. And if he does even mildly better, like he makes the playoffs, right? And he gets 9th place. And he's a genius. He took Chicago to the playoffs for the first time since 2011. The winningest coach in Fire history. What a great guy. So in some ways, it's a smart job for him to take. And we're going to see. Pete with Berhalter can always get worse. We're going to see how he does in Chicago. All right, guys, smash that like button if you have not already. We have almost 100 right now in the stream and only 25 likes. Let's see if we can get that up to 50 likes, and we'll get started here soon. Bet Online still helping to sponsor the channel. Thank you. Believe is the code. RCP says he'd be asking how to say African hunting dogs in Portuguese. All right. Now, Antonee Robinson is number 10 in the top 10. Mostly for the game he played against West Ham in midweek, where he got 2 assists. Now, some people might say, but Pete, 2 assists in the Premier League, surely that means that he, deserved more or deserved to be higher up this list than 10th. And I will say yes, normally, but let's take a look at the assists. Played 90 minutes, got the 2 assists, 5 chances created. So very heavily involved in the attack these days, Antonee Robinson, playing a lot more like a wing back than a pure left back. 2 out of 9 accurate crosses, still not great. 3 out of 5 accurate long balls. 2 out of 7 ground duels won. 4 out of 6 aerial duels won. 2 fouls drawn and 3 fouls committed. Now, this was the second assist. Both assists were not really they were simple passes, and the great work was done by Iwobi, right? This was literally the pass. This was the assist. A very simple backwards pass to Iwobi, who then scored a screamer of a goal. And the first assist was the exact same thing. He's literally there. He passes the ball to Iwobi and continues overlapping. Iwobi takes the shot. It almost wasn't. If Raul Jimenez had gotten a touch on it, A-Rob wouldn't get the assist. But it was a very good strike by Iwobi, and the presence of Raul Jimenez on both of these goals actually did sort of bamboozle the keeper a little bit, and it managed to squeeze it into the back of the net. So it's good. I mean, he still had a good performance. It's not like he was bad, but we have to take into consideration when we say an assist, not all assists are created equal, just like not all goals are created equal. But he continues to have a fantastic season regardless. And certainly, I don't know if he's going to leave or not, but even if he doesn't, he has probably been, one of the most consistent USMNT players this season. It's between him and Christian Pulisic, certainly. Number 9, Paxton Aaronson's breakout season continues with his 10th goal contribution, playing for FC Utrecht, who are pushing for the title still, against Valvik. Played 90 minutes, got 1 assist, 6 chances created, 2 out of 4 accurate crosses, 2 out of 3 tackles won, 5 out of 9 ground duels won, and 2 fouls drawn. This was the assist. The ball was played here into him in the channel, and it was played in front of him in the channel. He ran onto it and stabbed it with his right for his teammate to score. Malik Tillman is 8th, PSV Eindhoven. Now, sadly, it appears that Malik Tillman injured himself scoring this goal against Excelsior in the Dutch Cup. He only played 60 minutes, scored 1 goal, 1 big chance missed, 2 out of 2 accurate long balls, 4 out of 12 ground duels won, 2 out of 3 aerial duels won, and 2 fouls drawn. This was the goal here. It popped out. He took it quite nicely, but sort of slipped as he took it, which apparently is when he injured himself. RCP. So we don't know how long he's going to be out for. I imagine we'll probably hear more in the next couple of days. But it's sad for Malik Tillman because after all this time, he still hasn't really performed for the national team. And I even said, look, March and the Gold Cup should probably be, I don't want to say his last chance ever, but if he still doesn't perform for the national team, then serious questions should be asked about if he should even be called up, because it's fantastic what he's doing for PSV and all of that, and that's great. But at the end of the day, you have to put up you have to perform for the national team. And outside of one Canada game, the Canada game where I thought he was not bad, we've never really seen him have a strong USMNT performance. It's always been very casual, very passive, and largely ineffective. So related, RCP says, Pete, is it time for Paxton to be called up in March? I would say yes, especially with Malik Tillman out injured. I would say yes, Paxton Aaronson deserves that call-up. If we think about guys that can play the 10, there is still a lot of competition for that 10 place because obviously Gio is there. Brendan Aaronson apparently is playing there. It's where Pochettino likes him. I don't think he should be starting there or anywhere on the national team. But you have Gio, you have Brendan, Weston, McKennie can play there. Busio can even play there, and obviously you've got Paxton Aaronson now who can play there too. So there's still a lot of spots to kind of compete for there. Judgmental Deity with the bangers today. Hopefully back by March. Otherwise, Madman Madco's music will start playing. Mark McKenzie of Toulouse is really helping Toulouse rise up that Ligue 1 table. Got another clean sheet against Lyon. Played 90 minutes, had 1 chance created, 4 passes into the final third, 3 out of 8 accurate long balls, 2 clearances, 1 interception, 7 recoveries, 5 out of 6 ground duels won, 0 out of 2 aerial duels won, and 1 foul drawn. McKenzie has probably been pretty consistently good for Toulouse so far in Ligue 1. And I think with Richards seemingly finding form again now for Crystal Palace, and certainly he's helped by Chalobah leaving them, I think the near future national team pairing should probably be Chris Richards and Mark McKenzie. Richards, however, has not really performed for the national team under Greg Berhalter. I want to see what he looks like under Pochettino. We haven't seen him under Pochettino yet. He was injured in the last 2 camps. So it's like, well, I want to see McKenzie and Richards for now to see, what this pairing could look like. Because Tim Ream is very, very clearly on the decline. I'm not sure we should keep trotting him out there in competitive games, frankly. Number 6, Gio Reyna of Borussia Dortmund against Holstein Kiel in midweek on the bench, of course. Came off the bench and scored the goal that nearly sparked the comeback. It was unfortunately too little too late. Played 31 minutes, 1 goal, 1 chance created, 100% passing accuracy, 1 out of 1 successful dribbles, 2 out of 3 accurate crosses, 1 out of 1 accurate long balls, and 1 out of 1 ground duels won. He did also, that chance created was a very clear-cut chance that was headed straight at the keeper by, I believe, Gurasi. This was the goal. Ironically, after this, Nuri Sahin came out and says, hey, opportunity, because let's be honest, his main competition is Brandt. Now, Brandt has been stinking up the joint big time. And so Nuri Sahin says, Gio's been really excellent in training and is definitely an option for us. Okay. That still doesn't start against Frankfurt on the weekend, despite scoring the goal, despite the words of praise from his coach, still doesn't start. Fine. They need a goal, right? They're down 1-0 in the first half. In the second half, they make 3 substitutions None of them are Giovanni Reyna. They still need a goal. Finally, in the 87th minute, they bring on Giovanni Reyna. So what changed? Is it lip service that Dortmund is paying him? Is it, like what is it exactly? I'll tell you. Interestingly, and I'm sure these things had to do with each other, in between those comments from Nuri Sahin and the game itself, there were reports from several reliable sources that Giovanni Reyna's agents are in talks with AC Milan. However, there had been no discussions between Dortmund and Milan. So perhaps the coach felt like, oh, he's talking to other clubs. I can't trust him to start. His head is not going to be focused. And that's why he left him on the bench. Is that justified? No. In my opinion, no. If you think he's there, if you think he's focused, if he's demonstrating in training and he's demonstrating in games that he's being effective, then that seems to me like a little bit of an excuse. Now, there is also the report that, the thing that could hamper the sale to Milan is that Dortmund want 15 to 18 million for him, which frankly, in my opinion, is an absurd price to ask. When you consider that Christian Pulisic went for 20 million with 1 year left on his contract, Christian Pulisic with less of an injury history record than Gio, with a longer history of being quite effective at a good level, including in the Premier League, including in the Champions League, he only went for 20 million, right? So to me, it seems unfair to price Giovanni Reyna, who not only has an extensive injury history, but has struggled to earn starting minutes for quite a few years now, at 15 to 18 million. So what Dortmund is essentially doing is saying, we're not going to play you, even though, frankly, when we do play you, you tend to be actually quite effective for us. But generally, we're not going to play you. And that's fine, right? If you don't think Giovanni Reyna is good enough for your mid-table club, because frankly, that's what they are right now, fine. You have every right. I can even sympathize with the argument that he doesn't do enough defensively, and that's fine. But then you cannot turn around and say, we don't trust him to even play in the Bundesliga in the mid-table team. And, he hasn't started for us in really meaningful, consecutive starts for years. And yet we're still going to demand 15 to 18 million for him. So it's a bit of a conundrum that Giovanni Reyna is in. It's particularly a conundrum because the move to Milan is complicated. I don't know if it's going to happen or not, even if they come to some kind of agreement that allows Gio Reyna to go. Here's my issue with it. It could be a good move because A, Milan needs more goals, and that's what Gio can contribute. B, Milan doesn't really have a 10. People are going to say Tijani Reinders. Tijani Reinders is not really a 10. He's an 8, sort of moonlighting as a 10. Same with Ruben Loftus-Cheek, also not a pure creative 10, okay? Now, so I think that could be quite good. It's a fresh start. Obviously, he gets to play with Pulisic and with Musa, and I think those would be the pros. But the issue is, does Conceição actually want him? Because, let's be honest, who's Conceição's agent? Jorge Mendes. We saw how this went at Nottingham Forest, where the player, Gio, was moved, right? He was moved to Nottingham Forest. Jorge Mendes had the same agent as Nuno Santos. And so now you've got a situation where the coach doesn't really want him. It's sort of an agent-driven move. So look, if Conceição says, I really like this Gio guy and I want to bring him in and I believe in him, fine, but not on loan. It has to be on loan with the obligation to buy in the summer, because then they actually have a vested interest in him. And if it's a loan, there's no real reason to bring him in because they have no reason. He's just there for 6 months. And it's going to feel very similar to how it did at Nottingham Forest, right? So, but if he doesn't want him, if Conceição is just like, yeah, I mean, we can bring him. It doesn't hurt to have an extra body. I'm not sure that's really the move for Giovanni Reyna. And it's going to be hard to know until if it happens, then it happens, and we sort of see how it plays out. It's going to be hard to know if this is a move where Milan is actually interested in him or if it's more like an agent-driven move. And that is what is hard to tell at this point in time. But to be clear, Giovanni Reyna is not blameless here either, right? Giovanni Reyna can do a lot more off the ball. He's still quite passive defensively, and that probably hurts his chances. So Dortmund has some culpability in terms of pricing him out of a move and maybe not giving him the playing time that he deserves, but he also has some culpability in terms of his defensive unreliability. Milan really needs midfielders, says Jeff Carey. Hey, Jeff, yes, I agree. They don't have enough depth and they don't have enough quality in depth. And, it's putting a big strain on players like Christian Pulisic and Leao and Reinders and others. So, yes, I would agree with you that they need that. The question is, do they rate Giovanni Reyna? Because just because they need a midfielder, it doesn't mean they're actually going to give Gio a fair chance. I'm cautiously optimistic about the move if it happens, but I think the only way it happens is if Dortmund drops their asking price and maybe gets a sell-on clause, right? If they say 10 million plus 20% of a sell-on fee. So now you're sort of hedging your bets that if Gio does live up to some kind of potential and at some point gets sold, then they'll still make money off of that and they're making the instant fee. Because right now it feels like they really don't rate him, and yet it does feel at the same time like they're holding him hostage. Christopher Richards, and this is, quite compelling in terms of our USMNT weaknesses. He does seem to be putting it together now for Crystal Palace. He played 2 games this week. In both of those games, was able to help them keep a clean sheet against both Leicester and West Ham. Against Leicester, he had 8 passes into the final third, 1 out of 2 tackles won, 1 block, 5 clearances, 2 out of 3 ground duels won, 4 out of 6 aerial duels won. And against West Ham, played 90 minutes, clean sheet, 1 chance created, 7 passes into the final third, 1 block, 6 clearances, 2 interceptions, and 2 recoveries. Against Leicester, I thought he looked a little shaky on the ball for about the first 15 to 20 minutes, and then after that, he sort of settled in quite nicely. We really need our center backs to be performing because that is still the weakest part of our roster right now. So at least if him and McKenzie can continue to perform in a top 5 league, it gives me some comfort because reality is CCV and Trusty in Scotland, mixed reviews from both of them. Tim Ream, obviously very much on the decline, and the less said about Miles Robinson, the better. So it's good to see Chris Richards. Hopefully he can really start to put this together soon because we're going to need reliable center backs going into not only the World Cup next year, but also, Nations League in March and Gold Cup in the summer. Weston McKennie of Juve got an assist against Atalanta. 2 chances created when he actually got to play as a midfielder. 2 out of 2 successful dribbles, 3 out of 3 ground duels won, and 1 out of 3 aerial duels won. This was the little slip pass there that was nicely finished, and he is earning plaudits both for his performances and also his versatility for Juve this year. Ricardo Pepi, despite the seesaw back and forth between starts for him and sometimes for Luuk de Jong, he hasn't quite earned that starting spot yet, but has gotten significantly more minutes than he has gotten last season, and deservedly so because he has been delivering. This was true against Excelsior in the Dutch Cup, played 120 minutes, scored 2 goals, including the winning goal in a 5-4 win, 3 chances created, did miss 2 big chances. This is something that we don't talk about enough with Ricardo Pepi. Testing, 1, 2, 3. Am I still there? Sorry, my mic got unplugged. He does still miss chances he should be finishing at times. And yet, when you look at his minutes to goal contributions record, it is phenomenal. He's got 100. I think he's got 1 goal contribution every 57 minutes for PSV Eindhoven this year in over 1,000 minutes. So it's not a massive, sample size, but it is not insignificant either. For context, I don't know anybody who remembers Josie Altidore. I don't know how many of you in the channel have been following the US for that long, but his best ever season was this season he put together for in the Eredivisie for AZ Alkmaar. And I think he got 31 goal contributions that season in the Eredivisie, in all, all competitions combined, the Europa League, the Eredivisie, et cetera, et cetera. Even in that season, he only was averaging about 1 goal every 100 minutes, right? Because he was playing a lot more than Ricardo Pepi is. Ricardo Pepi is averaging 1 goal contribution every 57 minutes. And what's interesting, too, is the diversity of the goals that he is scoring. This was a flying karate kick off the cross here that helped him to score this nice goal into the corner of the net. This was a great little run into the channel and then chipped the keeper quite coolly. And that was just really good to see, the diversity of goals that he's scoring. And he's also improving his contributions outside of the goal scoring itself, right? One of the arguments for De Jong up until now, recently, has been, well, he's much better in every other aspect. His hold-up play, his combination play, his off-ball movement, his ability to take players on the dribble, technical ability, et cetera, et cetera. He had a clear edge over Ricardo Pepi. What I've seen more with Ricardo Pepi this season, and he's still not a strong part of his game, but I have seen him improve, is all the other things outside of goal scoring, right? Which will certainly add to his case when he's being considered for starts and for minutes in general. So with Balogun injured, it is good to see our other 9 continuing to produce at the level that he is at. Timothy Weah against Milan broke his own personal goal contribution record. His previous goal contribution record was 8 goal contributions. It was for Lille in the 2020-2021 season. For Juve, he already has 9 in this season. Now, it's not like he's playing on a Pulisic level, but considering that he's been on the bench a fair bit, considering that he's also been injured a bit this season, to break that record and it's for it to be only January is phenomenal and something that we can really applaud him for. His goal should be to hit 15. I mean, if you're at 9 in January, we have 4 more months, right? He only needs 1.5 goal contributions per month between now and then, right? So that's been really good to see. And it wasn't some tap-in either. This was a goal where he was played into the channel, was being defended by, I believe it was Tomori. And yeah, it was Tomori. And, he cuts it on to his right in order to force Tomori one way and then quickly cuts it on to his left in order to create a little bit of space. Not the greatest defending from Tomori there because he didn't get tight enough, in my opinion, and he didn't stay goal side enough. He gave him way too much space for the shot, but credit to Timothy Weah for finishing quite nicely. Last but not least, Tyler Adams, I think for the first time in the history of this series, gets first place in the top 10. For 2 performances, one against Chelsea in midweek, in which they drew 2-2, Bournemouth, and one against Newcastle on the weekend, in which Bournemouth won 4-1. Tyler Adams got an assist in that game. May not have been an intentional assist, as you will see, but it came from him doing something very Tyler Adams-esque, and that was reading space, creating a crucial interception in order to set up a goal. He also had 4 passes into the final third, 3 out of 3 tackles won, 4 out of 11 ground duels won, 1 out of 4 aerial duels won, and 1 foul drawn. He did also get a hockey assist for whatever that's worth in the game against Chelsea. Now, it's worth mentioning that against Chelsea, he was partially responsible on Cole Palmer's goal. But overall, in both of these games, he had very, very strong performances. Versus Chelsea, 1 chance created, 6 passes in the final third, 3 clearances, 5 recoveries, 2 out of 3 ground duels won, 1 out of 1 aerial duels won, and 2 fouls drawn. This was against Newcastle. It was a Newcastle transition moment, a counter. They tried to play it out, but Tyler Adams stepped into the way of the ball and in the same touch also fed the teammate who then turned around and scored. So congratulations, Tyler Adams. The only real thing with Tyler now is, can he stay healthy? That's the big one, because he's, 2 years almost of injury has, definitely taken its toll on Tyler, and staying healthy is going to be crucial, especially as we go into Nations League and into the summer. But it's good to see him playing so well. And by the way, Tyler Adams, Bournemouth, only 1 point right now off the Champions League spaces. So, And, Fulham not far behind them too. So it's good to see Americans not only doing well on clubs, but those clubs themselves also pushing up the tables. The same can be said for Mark McKenzie over at Toulouse. All right, guys. Have a great rest of your Sunday. That's it for the top 10. Midweek, we'll cover the other Camp Cupcake game, and then, just continue. It's also Champions League is back in midweek. So a lot of very interesting games for a lot of our guys in the Champions League. So we'll see. Have a great rest of your Sunday, guys. I got to get going here. Love to all. Thank you to everybody who put all the nice comments and notes on my, my post about having to let Taco go. Reading them helped me a lot. Not only me, but also, my girlfriend. We found a lot of comfort in all of the condolences that everybody sent. So we really appreciate it. And we really felt the love from the community. And it is definitely helping us through this time, which has been, far from easy. So thank you. Thank you to all of you. It is very, very much appreciated, more than you know. Patreon supporters, thank you. These, the top 10 will obviously be there tomorrow for you as well. So lots of love to everyone. And I'll talk to you all soon. All right.